Story 1. Am I the a-hole for not telling a man that the research he was mansplaining to me was my own? I, 33 female, work in a very small, technical, specific, male-dominated field. I won't give too much information on it as I think you could easily find my identity if I did, but let's just say it's a subcategory of law. I graduated 9 years ago. For anyone wondering, the system in my country is different than in the US, so I only studied for 5 years, and am now a lawyer as well as a researcher. I published some work here and there but nothing too major, and no one outside of that field knows my work. Yesterday I went to a bar with a couple of friends who introduced me to one of their friends who works in the same field as me. I was pretty excited to meet him because it's rare to meet people who work in that field. He doesn't exactly do the same thing as I do, he's not a lawyer but a legal advisor, but we work on the same topics. So naturally we started talking about our work. At one point we were discussing a point on which we had different opinions, so I explained mine to him and he replied by saying that my opinion was based on nothing while his was based on the work of a professional, you guessed it, me. He basically started explaining my work to me, but in a completely wrong way and missed all of my points. I asked him if he was sure that that was what the author meant and he said that he was because it was pretty simple actually. For another good 20 minutes he explained all of it to me in details, like I was a first-year law student. I didn't say anything because it was pretty funny to watch him say things that were completely wrong with so much confidence. After that the topic changed and the night went on, but at the end of the night right before leaving I decided to tell him that I was actually the person that wrote the work he had quoted, and that he hadn't really understood it. He reacted very badly and got angry, and he told me that I had manipulated him to humiliate him. He yelled at me for not saying it was my work at the beginning. I simply replied that he had embarrassed himself and left. I woke up this morning to texts from my friends saying I was wrong for causing drama and tension and that I could have been nicer to their friend. I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong there. I mean, yes, I could have told him right away, but is it that big of a deal that I didn't? I'm not exactly sure. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I forgot to make this clear and maybe it's a bit of a misunderstanding, but both conversations happened only between the two of us. We were the only ones talking about our work and our friends also weren't really there when I told him that I was the author. So it's not like I publicly humiliated him. The only thing embarrassing for him here is that a woman seemed smarter than him, and I think that's what GE had an issue with. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole and kudos to you for being so calm when he mansplained your own research. Question. Did your friends also reprimand their friend for screaming at you? I mean that wasn't exactly friendly either. To answer your question, I have no idea. I left right after and he left to go back with my friends. The way I know them I think they did because they are always the people that want to avoid tension, so I'm pretty sure they weren't happy that he reacted that way, but I can't know for sure. Not the a-hole. This is hilarious. That's how I felt the whole night. Honestly, I was laughing so hard inside I didn't expect him to take it that way. We are laughing with you. Did you introduce yourself? Be introduced to him by your name? Only by my first name. And I have a pretty common first name. Think like Mary. Then it makes sense he didn't know you were the author of the research. But anyway, you were not the a-hole and it was all on him that he embarrassed himself. Not the a-hole. He F around, found out. He's just pissed as a small man that realized he was outclassed and potentially made some massive career errors. Being plain wrong, to start with, and then being enough of a misogynist to behave like that without realizing you were the author. You took the trash out. He probably behaves like this in the office too. So taking him down a peg probably hit too hard. Not the a-hole. A decent person would just laugh and apologize, admitting he really must have looked funny to you, and then respectfully ask to explain the points he did not get. No matter how late you revealed the truth, and even if you said that a little bit bitter, any sane, healthily confident person would apologize for misinterpreting your text. He could continue arguing, but how he reacted was not normal. You're okay. Not the a-hole. He's the a-hole. Twice. Maybe 3 times. Firstly for mansplaining. Second for kicking off. And possibly third for whining to your friend. You merely listened politely, and gave him enough rope to hang himself. Not your fault he took it. Story 2. Am I the a-hole here for cancelling our honeymoon? My husband, Diego, and I got married 3 weeks ago. It was a beautiful wedding, but incredibly exhausting for both of us. We had planned our honeymoon in Bali, a trip we had dreamed about since getting engaged. Everything seemed perfect, until it wasn't. A few days before we were supposed to leave, Diego's mom, Carmen, called him crying. She claimed her health had worsened and that she needed him close in case something went wrong. Being the devoted son he is, Diego told me we should postpone the honeymoon. I was frustrated, but I agreed, thinking it was a serious matter. 2 days later, I found out that Carmen had planned a surprise family gathering at her house that same weekend. Her health scare was just an excuse. When I confronted Diego, he tried to defend her, saying she was emotionally fragile and just missed him. That was the breaking point for me. I decided to cancel the honeymoon altogether instead of just postponing it. I told Diego that if we couldn't prioritize our marriage from the start, we needed to rethink our priorities. Now Diego is upset, saying I overreacted and we could have just gone later. My mother-in-law accuses me of being selfish and taking her son away. But I feel like Diego allowed her to manipulate something important for us. Am I the a-hole for canceling our honeymoon and refusing to compromise further? Now for the comments. 3 weeks. It's not too late to get an annulment and get away from that man-child and his manipulative mother. Seriously. This is the life you want to live for the rest of your life. You're the a-hole for coming to Reddit and not going to the courthouse to file for an annulment. I would have gone on the honeymoon and left him behind. You could have met Salvador, who would treat you like a lady and give you your sunblock tanning massage while lying on the beach. Don't ever let him forget he is okay with an old woman canceling his honeymoon because she couldn't be away from him for a few days. Run to the nearest exit. Update us. I love the names, and if he isn't mature enough to stand up to mom, he's not mature enough to be in a relationship, not the a-hole. You're not the a-hole. Your husband's mother's actions were manipulative, and your decision to prioritize your honeymoon was justified. It's important to set boundaries and protect your relationship, especially in the early stages of marriage. Diego needs a reality check. Not the a-hole. His mother is overattached, interfering, and manipulative, and he allowed her to be. If you're going to save this marriage, he needs to understand that postponing the honeymoon due to his mother's needs and subterfuge was not okay. Maybe reading the responses to this post would help, or an independent third party like a counselor. He needs to manage his mother, and he is failing right out of the gate. Cancel the marriage and go on the honeymoon on your own. Win-win for you, and Mama can keep her boy. Not the a-hole. Please seek out an annulment if it's only been 3 weeks. Your mother-in-law has already wiggled her way into your marriage. If Diego doesn't have enough cojones to put that woman in her place, he has already ruined your marriage. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for refusing to lend my tools to a neighbor who never returns them? I, 34 male, have a decent collection of tools I've built up over the years. I do a lot of DIY projects, and it's taken me time and money to gather everything I need. My neighbor, Rick, 42 male, doesn't have many tools and often comes over to borrow mine. At first, I didn't mind helping out, it's what neighbors do, right? But here's the issue, Rick never returns anything unless I ask for it, and even then, it's a hassle. He either pretends he forgot it was mine or claims he was about to bring it back. One time, he even lent my ladder to another neighbor without asking me. The last straw came a couple of weeks ago. I lent him my power washer so he could clean his driveway. I specifically asked him to return it when he was done because I needed it for a project the next day. Not only did he fail to bring it back, but when I went over to get it, I found it sitting outside in the rain. When I called him out on it, he just shrugged and said, "It's just water, it'll dry." This past weekend, he came over asking to borrow my electric sander. I told him, "Sorry, Rick, but I can't keep lending you my tools if you're not going to return them or take care of them properly." He got defensive and accused me of being selfish, saying, "Neighbors are supposed to help each other." Then he went around telling other neighbors that I refused to help him, and now some of them are giving me the cold shoulder. A few have even said, "It's just a sander, why not just let him borrow it?" But for me, it's the principle. I feel like I've been more than patient with Rick, and I'm tired of chasing down my own belongings. So, am I the a-hole for setting boundaries with my tools, or should I have just let him borrow it again to keep the peace? Now for the comments. Good neighbors take care of things and return them in good condition, that's what good neighbors do. Is he doing that? You didn't break the good neighbors deal, he did. It's just tools plus you money to buy them plus the time to keep them in good condition plus the goodwill, who can't reciprocate with their end of the bargain, take care and return, can buy their own tools. Not the a-hole, it's not just tools. Tools cost money, good tools more money. Taking care of tools makes them last longer, thus saving money. Your neighbor doesn't mind costing you money. You are not his piggy bank. If it's just a sander, he, or the neighbor siding with him, shouldn't mind just getting their own then. Yeah, agreed. Definitely not the a-hole. And one more thing, taking care of the tools is one thing, but you gave him your trust. As neighbors, it's really important to have those. You can buy tools again, but the trust he broke, I don't think any kind of tool can fix that. Not the a-hole. He deserved it. And the people tolerating him are the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Then you should let him use yours. Up. You did help a neighbor, and in turn he was rude, disrespectful, and thoughtless. It's 3 strikes and you're out. Let him badmouth you around the neighborhood. You know that he'll just borrow stuff from other people, refuse to return it, and treat it badly. It may take a while, but eventually people will understand that the bad neighbor is Rick. Not the a-hole. Tools aren't communal candy, man. You've got every right to protect your gear, especially from a serial tool hoarder like Rick. Maybe Rick needs a reminder that borrow doesn't mean keep until the end of time. Stick to your tools, I mean, guns. Not the a-hole. Good quality tools are not cheap to replace. He's only your neighbor. When I was a kid, if I didn't clean them up and put my dad's tools back where I got them, I didn't get to borrow them again, and that's family. That makes me feel better because I don't let my kid use my tools any more than I have to. It's less that he is careless and more that he is a bit destructive like his dad, and I take care of my tools. Not the a-hole. It's your stuff, so you get to choose who uses it. I tell him that I don't lend tools to people who don't return them as requested, agreed, or don't call me to tell me why they were delayed returning the tools. The power washer could have been stolen while he left it outside. Now he has lost access to all of the other tools that you have for as long as you and he live there. I don't know what it would cost to rent a power washer because it would depend on the model. Suppose it's $50. I know that it would be worth it to me to be able to wheel the power washer down the street rather than go to Home Depot to rent one and have to put it into my trunk, get it out of my trunk, then repeat the process when I'm finished. Story 4. Am I the a-hole for refusing to share my college savings with my step-siblings because my mom saved it for me? Hi everyone, I'm Sienna, 19 female, and I'm currently a student. Growing up, I lived mostly with my mom after my parents divorced, but I spent weekends and holidays with my dad, his wife, my stepmom, and their 2 kids, 8 female and 6 male. While I love my dad, I've always felt like an outsider in his new family. When I was younger, my mom started a college savings fund for me. She worked so hard to build it up over the years, and it's the reason I've been able to go to college without drowning in debt. My dad didn't contribute much to it. He said he had other expenses, especially with my younger siblings, but I've always been grateful for what my mom did. Last weekend, during a family dinner, my stepmom casually mentioned that my younger siblings are going to need help paying for college someday. Then she turned to me and asked if I'd be willing to share some of my college fund with them since we're all family. I was completely caught off guard. I told her I couldn't because that money is specifically for my education, and my mom worked really hard to save it for me. She got upset and said I was being selfish, arguing that my siblings are young and will need support when they're older. My dad chimed in, saying it would mean a lot to the family if I contributed, even just a small portion. I told them I understood their concern but that this wasn't something I could do. My stepmom ended the conversation by calling me ungrateful and storming out of the room. Since then, my dad has been distant, and my stepmom barely speaks to me unless it's to throw a passive-aggressive comment my way. Even my mom thinks I shouldn't have entertained the conversation at all, but I didn't want to cause a bigger fight. Now I'm wondering if I handled this the wrong way. Am I the a-hole for refusing to share my college fund with my step-siblings? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole, that's your college money. You need to use that for your education. At the next conversation, OP should remind both stepmom and dad, yes, they will need help paying for their collage like I do. For my case, my mum saved up tooth and nail for me. Neither of you contributed to it. I suggest you start as a matter of conscientiousness making contributions to their college funds so they get the help they need. It's not my responsibility to sponsor my siblings. It's your responsibility to sponsor your children. OP, focus on your mum. If your dad and his wife want to be passive, aggressive, spend time at your mum and avoid them for your peace of mind. You should absolutely not share because by the looks of it those two think, what's your step-siblings belong to your step-siblings and what is yours also belongs to your step-siblings. Remove yourself from that complication and cherish your mother. She sounds phenomenal. And my mother cared enough to save for her offspring. Dad, I am sorry that your new wife doesn't care enough about her offspring to save for them. But it was your choice to marry her after you left my mother. Not the a-hole. Is your stepmom smoking crack? Good for standing your ground. You stepmom wants your mother's money? Crazy. Not the a-hole. Your step-siblings have no right to a penny of the money your mother saved for you. If your dad's stepmom can't handle that, then that is their problem. It's their job to save for their kids, not yours and not your mother's. Stand firm, and do not be manipulated or emotionally blackmailed. If the money is in an account that anyone else has access to, move it. If your dad and family want to die on this hill, let them. Not the a-hole. You're not responsible for funding your siblings' college because they have two able-bodied parents that have at least a good 10 years left to save up. I'd be super embarrassed if I have to ask a 19-year to help me fund my kid's education. Your mother saved up for the only kid she has with your dad. She's not responsible for his other kids. Does your dad and his wife not feel embarrassed that he indirectly needs help from his ex-wife to pay for their kids? Your father failed as a parent. Your stepmother also failed as a parent. Both as useless as each other. Your dad sounds like a lazy deadbeat piece of crap. And your stepmother sounds like a gold-digging bee. You are still a child yourself, and they are asking you to give away the savings your mother put together for you. Your younger siblings have TWO parents that can save money together. If they don't care enough to do so, that is their own fucking problem. They shouldn't have to resort to stealing from what your mother put together or from your future.
Thank you for listening. If you like the video, consider like and subscribe. If you want more stories like these, turn on your notification to receive the latest stories.